Story 1. I once went on my balcony to smoke a cigarette, only I forgot there was no balcony anymore because it was being fixed. So, I broke my leg falling one story down. Now, the real irony was that my mother wanted to fix the balcony because it was old and she was afraid it might break off and I might hurt myself. Story 2. When I was a kid, we had blue carpet in the living room. I had just watched some movie or show where the characters jumped into a painting, and I started thinking maybe if I believed really hard, the blue carpet would turn into a vast ocean. So, I climbed up on the recliner and swan dived into the floor. Story 3. I broke my ankle, and when I got home from the hospital, I was lying on the couch and realized there was a wasp in the room, kept flying in my face. There was nothing to swat it with, so I grabbed a book and went to swat it, overbalanced, fell, and broke my wrist. Back to the hospital. Story 4. Pretending to play Russian roulette with a handheld staple gun. I invisibly released the staple cartridge, held the stapler to my head, and pulled the trigger. The staples stayed in place and I stapled my head. Story 5. I jumped into a jacuzzi when I was drunk one night and sliced my kneecap open on a glass sitting in a holder on the side of it. I rushed to the hospital for surgery. To this day, I never use glass around a pool area. Story 6. I was pitching a tent in the Badlands in South Dakota, and I didn't have a hammer for the corner fasteners that you drive into the ground. What I did have was an empty beer bottle. And what I have now is a couple of scars on my left thumb. Story 7. Got up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom but didn't turn on any light because I was just going down the hall. Opened the wrong door and plunged headfirst down a flight of stairs in the dark while I was mostly asleep. I didn't realize I was falling down a flight of stairs until my head actually hit the stairs. I wasn't seriously injured, although I got bruised up pretty badly. Go ahead and laugh at me if you want. I did. Story 8. I was in alright shape, running and doing bodyweight training 3 to 4 times a week. I was invited to a TRX class, and the trainer decided to push me really hard for 2 hours. For days, I had excruciating soreness, and on the third day or so, my urine turned dark brown. I searched online and found that my kidney was shutting down due to the dead muscle from training. I went to the emergency room and was put on intravenous therapy for a week. Story 9. Making hot chocolate from a powder. I was holding the cup and spilled boiling water across my hand. Second-degree burns, and the hot chocolate was cold by the time I got home from the hospital. Story 10. I was in a basketball tournament running all over the place, and I tripped over my own ankles. I caught myself with my hands as I fell, but I ended up shattering my whole left wrist. I got up and kept playing until I started seeing colorful blotches and the room started spinning. I felt like I was going to throw up, but I was in shock, so no pain at all. Actually, I don't think I felt any pain whatsoever for that matter. It was just mild discomfort, if anything. I didn't even know it was broken beyond the fact that I couldn't move my hand, and it just flopped around loosely. Story 11. I put my finger deep into the outlet of the circular saw. It got clogged, and I wanted to unclog it. I was wondering why it was making those weird sounds as I poked the stuck sawdust. Then it dawned on me. The saw is also on the bottom. Fortunately, while the skin and meat were thoroughly minced, everything else was fine. The surgeon almost laughed when she was wondering how to put it all back. In the end, she connected the biggest chunks with knots, and it healed quite well. Story 12. I went golfing exactly once. When I got to the 7th hole, I put the putter between my teeth and leaned over to get my ball out of the cup. The putter head hit the ground, causing me to deep throat the grip all the way back. The end of the handle slammed into the back of my throat. I was spitting blood for 10 minutes. I quit immediately, went home, and 25 years later have never been back to any golf course. Story 13. Stabbed myself in the stomach carving a pumpkin for my kids. Honey, I think I need to go to the emergency room. What? Oh God. Hold this towel on it. You're bleeding all over the carpet. Hold on. Kids, get your shoes on. We're going to the hospital for your father. Get the hospital bag, please. Okay. Everyone in the car. A few stitches and antibiotics. We made it back in time for trick-or-treating. The hospital bag contains storybooks, puzzles, and games to keep the kids busy in the waiting room. Also, some first aid bits. Story 14. I once broke my own nose on my daybed by falling asleep mid-adjustment. My head slammed into the headboard so hard, blood was everywhere. 0 out of 10 would not want to wake up like that ever again. Story 15. This month, putting the shopping away was too hard. Following an unfortunate virus 40 years ago, which everyone else recovers from, I did not. I have a variable and startlingly low exertion capability. If I exceed it carelessly, I can be exhausted for the next week, confusion, muscle pains, etc. And so I put half the shopping away and then pushed through to complete the task. Symptoms are basically identical to those who have similar issues following COVID. Story 16. I partially tore my right anterior cruciate ligament walking up a set of bleachers at a sporting event. So I got a common sports-related injury from attempting to watch other people play sports. Story 17. As a kid, I had the brilliant idea to make my own bow and arrows. Only I was going to be self-taught and use thin aluminum cut from a soda can for the fletching or feathered part of an arrow. If you can visualize sharp metal zipping past the thumb knuckle of the hand holding the bow, you've got it. 8 stitches. Story 18. I was in the middle of a renovation in the basement, removing a long strip of crown molding, which was a quarter round. The piece slipped out of my hand, turned while it was falling, and one of the nails, still attached to the crown molding, went through my boot and pierced my big toe by the corner of the nail bed, all the way through the bottom of the toe. I proceeded to pull it out and go to urgent care. Fortunately, it didn't hit bone and I got a tetanus shot. Fun times. Story 19. I cracked a rib by leaning into the back of my truck to grab a brick. I have put my back out by sneezing, blow-drying my hair, and trying to stifle a sneeze. Separate occasions. Story 20. I had very sharp scissors in my hand, put them next to me at the height of my leg, and then forgot about them. A few minutes later, I jammed my leg into the pointy bit and got a cut so bad I needed to go to the doctor. Story 21. Walked into a glass door at full speed while trying to catch my cat. Thought it was open, ended up with a bruised forehead and an annoyed cat. Lesson learned. Always check for invisible obstacles when chasing pets indoors. Story 22. In middle school, I was standing with a group of friends in a circle talking at recess. All of a sudden, my knee decided to buckle backward and give out, causing me to fall to the ground. I ended up breaking off part of the end of my femur and lost or damaged basically all the cartilage in my knee. I had to have surgery to get the piece of femur out from floating around in my knee and get replacement cartilage or something. So yeah, I literally broke the strongest bone in the body by standing. Not my finest moment. Story 23. Drunk at a concert. There was a mosh pit, but it wasn't really that kind of show. A guy came out of nowhere and pushed me. I caught myself when I landed, but I broke my wrist in the process. I probably wouldn't have broken it if I had been sober. Story 24. I opened the car door, wasn't paying attention, and slammed it into my own face. My nose was gushing blood for about an hour. I nearly went to the urgent care. I didn't have insurance at the time, so I put it off as long as possible. Luckily, it ended up stopping on its own. Story 25. I was cleaning out my dad's place after he passed. We had gotten to the point where we were just tossing stuff in a huge dumpster as the new owners of the building wanted to begin some renovation. While throwing old cabinets in, I managed to really mess up my shoulder. That was a few years ago, and it's still in pain a lot. It also turns out the cabinets I tossed were not just my dad's, but also the new ones the new owners had just gotten for the renovation. Story 26. I was cutting plastic that was under tension, and as the blade slipped, I jerked my hand back away from my lap. Somehow, the arc my hand took made a circle, and I ended up with the knife stuck in my leg, just missed the femoral artery. Story 27. I was trying to inspect a wound on my knee and brought it closer to my face. I forgot where my limbs were in space and rocketed it into my face, breaking my nose. Blood everywhere. I'm an idiot. Story 28. I left a razor in my laundry basket from shaving. I just threw it in there. I don't know why. My laundry basket is really small and low, so I stepped in it to walk over it because my room was a mess. I forgot the razor was in there and cut my toe open. I didn't feel anything until I saw blood trickling down my bedsheet after I sat down. Story 29. When I was a mechanic, I was drilling a rather large hole in a frame for mounting a fire pump. I was going too fast when the bit caught. The body of the drill whipped around and rang my bell. Story 30. Gave myself an honest-to-God black eye while sleeping. Rolled over in the middle of the night and smacked my face into the windowsill. Woke up seeing stars with a crunchy brow. Story 31. I do this thing where I run my hand along the wall as I walk down hallways. Sometimes it will just be my palm against the wall, sometimes the back of my hand, sometimes my fingernails scraping the wall. One time, walking down a hallway with a wooden chair rail, I was running my fingernails along it and got a thick splinter go into my fingertip and under the fingernail all the way to the back of the nail. It hurt so badly. I came home, and my wife panicked and wanted to wait, but I told her I had to get it out because it hurt so badly. I ended up cutting back half of my fingernail lengthwise and some of the skin to pull out the piece that was still wedged back there. My finger looks and feels absolutely fine now, but it hurt so badly at the time. Story 32. I was playing football on the schoolyard. I tried to get my foot under the ball to chip it. Instead, I ended up kicking a drain with my full strength and broke my leg. I was out for about 4 months, shaking my head. Story 33. Stepped on a loose square of sidewalk outside of City Hall in Philadelphia and got catapulted into the street. Fortunately, there was a red light at the intersection and no vehicles heading towards me. Story 34. When I was 14, a girl I liked was moving away. It was around 2006 or 2007, and emo culture was really popular. So I, being the misguided 14-year-old I was, thought the only way to move forward would be to chop my finger off, as it would be similar to losing a love. I put a pocket knife on my pinky and started sawing back and forth. I decided shortly after that this wasn't going to work. But I figured if I got a big rock and dropped it on the knife, I'd chop my finger off. So I did that. It didn't chop my finger off, but it did cut down to the bone and through my nerves. I didn't feel it at all but lost a lot of blood and almost passed out. I still have a significant scar from doing it and getting it stitched back on. Self-harm is harmful, and I'm not sure why so many people were romanticizing it back then. Story 35. I opened a hot and pressurized radiator cap because I was impatient, having seen one blow up and knowing how unwise it is. I used a rag to protect my hand and was teasing it, cracking it open just enough to start to hiss. I burned my hand on steam and let go of the cap. It blew off and blasted me with the green, deadly volcano. I've never jumped backwards so far in my life. Somehow, I only got a first-degree burn in my armpit. Story 36. One day as a kid, I was watching the A-Team television show, sitting on the couch, eating an apple with peanut butter, slicing the apple as I went with a serrated knife. I looked up at the television for a second as I was stabbing the apple. I missed and jammed the knife into my leg instead. Story 37. I think about this from time to time. I was middle school age on a 10-speed bike. I was riding no-handed. I got mesmerized by the fact that the handlebars weren't square. Obviously, the front tire was square because I was driving straight. So, in my mesmerized state, I whacked the handlebar and hit a telephone pole. Story 38. Not knowing the difference between suntan oil and lotion as a young kid, I cooked myself like a Thanksgiving turkey. Blisters the size of quarters appeared all over my chest and arms. I spent 1 week on my back sprawled out in my family room. Story 39. When I was 6, I thought it would be a good idea to try to jump on one of those spinning death traps with handles at the park. I split my chin open and needed 6 stitches. Story 40. When I was about late middle school age, there was a massive downhill road in front of my house, so I decided to ride my scooter down it at full speed. I hit a pebble and went flying off and got pretty messed up. My elbows and knees were completely shredded. The side of my face got scraped, and I broke a finger. That's not the dumb part. As soon as everything healed, I did it again, crashed in the same spot, and got the exact same injuries. Story 41. Apparently willingly hanging out with my brother? I was trying to think of one, but every dumb way I've been hurt was my brother and me doing something stupid together. Story 42. Skateboarding. Don't do it. I proceeded down a steep hill with my longboard, tried to foot brake, and my leg bent in a way it shouldn't have. I chipped a bone which, after several months, didn't dissolve as planned. It actually attached and completely severed my anterior cruciate ligament. I've had reconstructive surgery, but atrophy kicked in, and it's never been the same. Story 43. When I was 5, I was walking back to my house from a Kool-Aid sale down the street. A garbage truck was collecting trash, and I thought it would be awesome to ride the truck like the garbage men did. I decided to climb on just as they were compacting the load, and the door came down and crushed my hand. Story 44. What accident did I have that wasn't dumb? I think the dumbest was my husband, and I would walk on this trail every day. My granddaughter was visiting, and I said, "Let's go down the hill and look at the stream." My husband, knowing how clumsy I am, said, "You better not go down there. You could get hurt." I reminded him that I haven't hurt myself in a few years. So we walk down the hill and I start to slide. And I broke my ankle. My granddaughter said I hit a rock. Story 45. Went up on my tiptoes to pull pants up, and when I came back down, I heard a loud pop in the top of my foot and haven't been able to walk on that foot for days now. Sharp, intense pain anytime I press on the bottom of my foot. I have no idea what I did.